This is the Seller Process Podcast, where we talk about the best systems, processes, and SOPs for your Amazon business so that you can regain control of your time, build up your team, and scale your e-com empire.
Hello, entrepreneurs. Gianmarco here. If you feel like the rising competition on Amazon is starting bothering you and you think you would benefit from learning some strategies and actionable tips to effectively differentiate your brand and stand out from the competition, then this episode is for you. Our guest today is an Amazon rockstar and a well-known veteran in this space. I'm talking about Brian Johnson. He has helped over 20,000 brands sell over $1 billion on Amazon through ad strategy and conversion rate optimization. He offers guidance to and partners with brands and sellers through his online community, Amazon PPC troubleshooting, as well as through coaching, software, training courses, and his flagship done-for-you agency, Canopy Management. So, hey, Brian, how is it going?
Fantastic. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, awesome. So, guys, Brian recently gave this speech at Pow Wow, which is a famous Amazon conference in Florida. And I've heard really great things about this speech. Especially, it was about standing out from the competition. So really stay tuned here because Brian is going to drop some really great value bombs. So before we jump to the actionable steps, let's give it some context, Brian. So what has changed in the recent years, and why are you stressing the need to stand out like now more than ever?
Absolutely. So what I'm most known for is the advertising that I've taught as far as Amazon advertising over the years. I've been in the Amazon space for about 7 years, in e-commerce for about 14 years. So I've put in my 10,000 hours. So the thing that has changed the most, there's always going to be new platforms. There's always going to be an evolution of e-commerce and online sales. But certainly COVID introduced a spin to that, a twist to that story, in that not only did we have e-commerce channels, Amazon, Walmart, Etsy, eBay, all these all doubling down and reinvesting into themselves and making sure they're trying to stand out from each other, right? And try to compete with each other more online. But then, of course, COVID came along and it forced a lot of people to start shifting their habits from retail, brick and mortar, in-person kind of purchases to online ordering and delivering. And that ran for a long enough time, obviously, to the e-commerce seller benefit is a lot of people started shifting over to online commerce. And of course, Amazon has always stood out as having, especially for their Prime members, always being able to have fast shipping. It's solving the problem as far as instant gratification, large selection. They nailed it even before this crisis came along. Now, fast forward to March of this year. In March of this year, a lot of states in the United States relaxed some of their COVID restrictions, allowed people to start, going out and really going to restaurants, going to retail shops. All those retail brick and mortar businesses reopened. And of course, shoppers who had been in quarantine and of course stuck in their house for so long, they're just like dying to get out of the house. And so a lot of them jumped off the computer, got out of the house with their family and went shopping, went to restaurants. And all of a sudden that kind of reset the habit back to the way things were before. Somewhat, people still do a lot of online shopping and home delivery, but Amazon, starting back in March, saw about a 30% drop in traffic from shoppers simply because of this one change. And we can presume that occurred with all e-commerce channels. Now, what happened as a result of that, of course, is that a lot of the sellers, Amazon has had a great business model as far as promoting individual third-party sellers who basically source their own products, bring them to market, and sell them on the Amazon sales channel as well as other e-commerce channels. And there's so many of them there that, first of all, a lot of them will look the same because they've followed the same kind of teaching of a lot of popular courses out there. And so there's a lot of similarity between them. But then also the sellers panicked when the traffic dropped down. They don't have a wide visibility like I would with my agency. They think that they're the only ones who lost the traffic. And so they compensate, kind of like, the stock market fluctuates up and down based off of emotions and panic and these kinds of things. Sellers, they went to the only lever that they knew to pull, and that was advertising on Amazon. And so then the cost of advertising went up, the competition level of Amazon advertising went up, and it didn't really get them any further. It ended up, basically reducing their profits and costing more, and it didn't really draw any more traffic to their products and their brand, and therefore they didn't really sell anymore. And that carried out through until just recently when holiday shopping started picking back up again. So that was probably the biggest change that necessitated the need for a different lever. And that, of course, that's what I've been teaching all year, even before the drop in traffic. And that is really taking the time to really stand out from competition on whatever e-commerce channel that you're on, that you're competing with for the same audience with similar products. You've got to be able to stand out unlike you've ever had to before.
Nice. Yeah. Sounds very interesting, actually, how this developed. Really, COVID changed everything. And this is one more thing that we can attribute to COVID. It's very interesting how this came along. So you created or outlined 4 steps or 4 methods to stand out from the competition and differentiate. So let's go through these 4 steps one by one in general, and then we can dive deeper into each of them.
Certainly. So what I'm trying to compel sellers and brand owners to do now is, first and foremost, is to take a look at where they're sitting relative to their competition. All the strategies that I'm teaching here, it's always going to be relative to what the competition is doing. If you in other words, there's no one set formula. It's about how do I make my brand, my products different than everybody else. So the first thing I do is I tell them or teach them how to identify the pattern. In other words, there's a common theme that occurs within a product niche. Similar images, similar titles, similar words, similar language being used in the images, in the title, in the product listing that seem to be common among the industry. And I can explain that later as far as why that is. 2, of course, is you've got to be able to grab the seller or the shopper's attention. You've got to hook them right away, or actually grab their eye, I should say, because they have gotten used to using mobile devices and they're in the habit of just scrolling past a lot of content at once. And it really requires something to pop and really catch their eye in order to even have them pause for a second to even read the title that you've provided. So really standing out visually from the competition. 3rd, of course, is hooking the shopper's interest into making it obvious to them that there's something different about your product. It's not the price, it's not the review, it's not that you've got the only product out there, but you are pointing out something that most other, if not all other sellers within your product niche are not pointing out. And that's actually quite easier to do than most people think. And then finally, once you've got that shopper to notice your listing, to engage, in other words, click through to your product listing to find out more because you've hooked their attention, then your product listing, you actually need to stand out another way, and that is to hook them multiple times by answering the question, what's in it for me if I buy this product? What's the benefit to me? What is this actually going to do for me, rather than simply just spouting features and specifications like so many listings do.
Okay, awesome. So let's dive right in. I'm very curious to know, like, really in details, what are the tips and strategies that we can apply in each of these points that you mentioned. So first one you mentioned is to identify the common pattern, right? So what can we say about that? What's the best tips that you can give us?
So there's 2 common patterns that we typically are going to look for. The first one is going to be the main image, because on the Amazon platform, it's going to vary depending on which e-commerce channel that you're on, where there's common competition. But in the example of Amazon, you basically have a main image, and everybody has a main image that returns, whether that's a sponsored ad that's running or an organic product listing that's showing in the search results on Amazon. You're going to have an image and you're going to have a title, right? And those are the big things that are going to provide quick information for a shopper when they're searching for something. Now, the images, it is very common for because of courses that have been taught, because of best practices that just everybody just listens to and just adopts, thinking that's the only way of doing it. Most of the search results, both the ads as well as the product listings, have resulted in common patterns where there's a lot of the products that look the same. not simply just having a different colored product. That's not it. It's more a case of, let's say that you have a product and everybody sells the same color because that's the most popular color, and everybody sells about the same kind of product sourced from similar manufacturers for the same price. And so there's different pricing available, but ideal in the world where I've got brands that are typically being undercut by some sellers that can source the product directly, and they're usually $10 to $20 higher than some of the other competitors. What do you do to stand out? The main image is the first one that you want to stand out. You want to recognize the patterns as far as like what is common among all the main images that show up for your top, your first page results that you're trying to compete for. And what you'll find is that there's a common pattern, usually maybe how many things that they put onto the main image. If it's a one item that only has one item to it, great. Then everybody's got one item that's showing. If it's an item that has 10 accessories, it's very common for sellers to think, mistakenly I might add, is that I need to show as much value as possible right up front. I need to basically close the deal right away. And I'm going to put all 10 accessories. I'm going to wrap them around the main image, the main product in the main image. And what you end up is everybody's got this cluttered image that nobody can translate in their brain quickly, especially when it's shrunk down in size, like you'd see on a mobile device. And so what we're looking for is anything. Is there any common color patterns, any common direction that the products are facing? Is everybody facing left? Ideally, we want to break that pattern in our own and have our product face right, as an example. We want to look for anything that is where if everybody is using this cluttered design where they're showing just like essentially they're spewing out every single thing that they've got packaged in there into this dense main image, go the opposite. Show a bunch of white space and show your main product only, and then expand on the value that you're adding within the listing. Same kind of thing goes on the title too. So that'd be the second one as far as pattern. The title, common words are typically used. Industry terminology that is used. It's very common for sellers to try to game the search engine of Amazon and use a bunch of stuffed words. They'll say like this product is for men, women, boys, girls, teens, elderly, whatever, right? They'll just stuff in a whole bunch of words thinking that that's going to give them better exposure to Amazon, and Amazon really doesn't need that anymore. You really need to be speaking to the shopper, not to the search engine. And so the title really needs to stand out, the common patterns would be industry terminology and acronyms that only the people who sell the product actually know what it means. The consumer, unless they're searching for a specific kind of ingredient or specification or code or something like that, they don't know what that is. And so they're not going to translate it in their brain. And so it's just going to have no value to them. It's not going to hook them. And when everybody's using the similar terminology, the brand that chooses to use different terminology, more visual terminology that just seems odd or stands out or explains some of these acronyms better than everybody else is going to resonate with a shopper better because they're going to quickly understand it. What we're trying to do is we're trying to avoid a shopper that is either confused or in doubt, right? Because either one of those will cause the shopper to move on until they find something that they can understand quickly. They understand what's in it for them, which is the whole direction we're going here. And so those are the patterns that we're trying to identify first in our niche, and then try to break the pattern. And that pattern is going to vary depending on whatever product niche that you happen to be in.
Okay, great. So this is first step, basically. And if I can kind of summarize it, I think, one sentence could be that the rule is to break the rule, I guess, yes, right?
Exactly.
So,
yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So that's clear then. I'm glad I understood it. So that's first step. All right. So then what we do next? So we identify the patterns. So now we should, you said the second step was to hook them, or grab their attention. What do we do next?
Grabbing their attention, you can do this in the main image. You can also do it in the title. In the main image, if everybody is selling a black product, sometimes you'll see a main image that is shown along next to the title that includes, like, say, the box that it came in. Maybe it has a nice shiny box. Maybe there's some kind of label or some kind of, you don't want to add in any additional graphics. Amazon has restrictions as far as some of the additional graphics or logos or that kind of stuff you can put on the main image. It's supposed to be a white background and your product and nothing else. But oftentimes we can get away with, there's kind of the gray area. There's kind of some flex that you can do there. Not necessarily like a lifestyle images, although some product niches do get away with that for a period of time. But simply, having something like the box that it came in, maybe the box that it came in is a bright red color or bright blue or any kind of a bright color like the red, blue, green, yellow. These are things that typically catch the human eye quickly. And if you're the only one to show that color among your competitors who are only showing their black product, and your product is black, but then you've got a box off in the distance, it's just a little splash of color kind of in the distance behind the product, then it's going to catch their eye. The same reason why grabbing their attention of having a product, if everybody is facing, has their image that's leaning or facing to the left, you face yours to the right. I've seen where, like for instance, in shoes, for instance, they've shown, somebody says, okay, here's the shoe, and they show one shoe. But then somebody will come along and it'll catch people's attention because it'll be the shoe, but then it'll show the second shoe behind it reversed, so you can see the bottom of the pattern of the sole, for instance, and it's pointed vertically. So then you have both a horizontal and a vertical. So tricks like that will instantly grab people's attention. We've done extensive studies on this within our companies of what grabs people's attention. Motion being the first one, which you're only going to get if you're doing the sponsor brand video ad mid-page. Second, of course, is bright colors that pop, the red, blue, green, yellow, any of these kind of things that stand out. Again, if everybody's using red's not going to stand out, right? It's going against the grain. The other things that stand out, of course, is things that are odd. Like since the clutter versus the white space, right? The single image when everybody else is using a cluttered image. The having something when everybody has got a vertical view, you've got a horizontal view. These kinds of things just stand out because the eye catches like, what's wrong with this picture? And they do a double take on it. That's exactly what you want. You want them to pause for the pause they're scrolling. You want them to double take so that they'll then have a chance of considering your title. Because before then, they're just skipping right past you. The same pattern that we identified in, as far as the title, as far as that industry terminology, like I said, if you use an odd word, for instance, that explains a feature or a benefit that you have, and I recommend doing that in the first 75 to 80 characters because that's typically what shows up by default on mobile devices. Use the full amount of text that you can in the title, but make sure in that first 75 to 80 characters, you've put in at least one or two words that nobody else is using that is relevant to the product, but stands out because maybe it's a funny word, that describes it, or maybe it's just an uncommon word that describes the same thing. Sometimes one of the examples that I use is an industry of office chairs where the office chair shows along the top. They say it's like, oh, the top of the chair has double stitching for reinforced, blah, 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 right? It's stronger, right? And an alternative word that I use on that is double apex stitching. Well, apex simply just means the top also, but it's a funny word that people are like going, okay, maybe I do or do not understand that word, but it's got an X in it. So the X, things like X's and Z's, double letters, even triple letters, if you can fit that in, catch people's attention because for some reason it just catches the human brain for whatever reason out of curiosity it does catch their attention. And obviously I'm summarizing here, there's a lot more detail that's available of course on this that I normally teach, but those are the things that can help both like I said, the image to grab their attention as well as the title to grab their attention. Ideally, you want to lead with one or two words that are expressing a specific benefit to the user that nobody else has pointed out. If it doesn't work, then go for the feature second. But don't just go with industry acronyms, and certainly don't just copy what everybody else is doing in their title.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. I think that the use of the title in order to give like some visual hook, I think it's very interesting because so far people are using titles just to communicate with words something, but in this case we're in a more and more visual kind of society, and especially with the mobile phones, we don't stop scrolling, and so basically we need just a scroll breaking image or title, right? So that people really instantly get their attention grabbed by that funny word or like a strange word that they don't see in any other titles, and also the picture, the image. So that's really a smart way, I think, to really make the most use of your images and title. So this basically, you just mentioned actually together point 2 and 3. So like hooking the people attention with the image and the title with several strategies. And by the way, guys, you can find lots of examples, real examples that you can see of images, of image comparisons, of what you should do and what you should not do, and also some examples of titles on how you should create it in the slides that Brian gave us, which are the same slides he presented in the conference that I mentioned before. You can find these slides. You can just download it. You will find it in the link in the show notes if you're in the website at thesellerprocess.com, or in the YouTube description if you're watching the video version. All right. So then we have the last step, which is the answering the question, what's in it for me? Okay, so that's interesting. Tell us more, Brian.
Yeah, so what's in it for me is essentially addressing the question to a shopper of simply, rather than making the shopper work to understand how they're going to use the product, what benefit they're going to get out of it, if you simply hand them, what they're going to get out of it, what the end result is, what the satisfaction that they're going to get out of it, then you make them work a lot less. And I hate to say that people have gotten lazy, but we've gotten trained because of media, because of TikTok, because of mobile devices. We a lot of times want instant gratification. We don't want to work very much. And so if you hand them the answer as far as what's in it for me, so they can quickly make an emotional decision, then that this particular product that you have is right for them, and you understand their pain and you understand their problem, then it's going to solidify their desire to actually purchase your product. Now, the what's in it for me, there's a couple of rules that I apply to that. Is you've got to do it right up front quickly, and that basically means in your secondary images, right? So not your main image, but your secondary images, and also in your bullet points typically. Now on mobile devices, you're going to get some of the description that's going to show up before the mobile devices. So you kind of want to have it there as well. But you want to answer probably at least 3 times, what's in it for me? From a benefit standpoint, lead with a benefit, a short benefit statement, something maybe 3 to 5 words. In the bullets or in the description, 3 to 5 words, followed by maybe a 3 to 5 word feature that supports that benefit, right? Here's why you're getting this benefit, because we did this different, or because of this specific feature. The rule on that is you want to be able to answer that so they understand it quickly, each one of those within 5 seconds. It's not an easy thing to do, but you can do it if you limit to 3 to 5 words. People are they're not going to read typically the paragraphs, right? They'll watch a short video, but they're typically not going to read these big paragraphs that are common in this industry among products that are sold on Amazon. And so you simply being the brand that first and foremost talks to your audience, understands the audience's actual pain points and needs, and where your product actually provides a benefit to them, you can express that in the first 3 bullet points: benefit, feature that supports that benefit. Same thing down in your A+ or your description fields. You could probably put a little bit more length to it, but I'd open right away with 3 quick hooks so they can say yes, yes, yes right away to themselves, as far as these are the benefits that I want for myself. The same thing goes for the images. A common mistake that I see in the images is sellers will try to cram as much information as possible into an image. They'll literally have an image and it has all these call outs, like a dozen call outs around a picture, all highlighting in tiny text and symbols saying, here's all the, here's the 12 features that this product has. There's no way that a shopper is going to be able to consume that image in 5 seconds. And so they bounce. Either they only get part of the information that you're trying, or they just say, this is too much information. They move on. You don't want that. Pull back on how much information you're trying to cram down their throat. Focus on the benefits so that each image, each bullet point is focused on a short benefit. On the images, make it all visual. Express that visually. Don't use text if you can. If you're going to use text, keep it to 1 or 2 words in images at most, okay? Because otherwise you're shifting them back over to text, and you want a visual appeal as well. The Yeah, so that's basically the 5-second rule as far as answering what's in it for me. The reason why this kind of stands out more from what other competitors are doing is, first of all, a lot of times they're talking about the specification, the sizes, and the ingredients, and the shipping weight, and all this kind of stuff, right? And it's making the shopper have to figure out for themselves what's in it for them. They have to make them think about it. And you really want them just to make a decision, and make a decision quickly, because the longer it takes for them to make a decision, the less likely they will make a decision. It's called analysis or paralysis by analysis, because especially in niches that have a lot of colors, a lot of patterns, there's so much selection that they get into this paralysis and they never make a decision, which is one of the reasons why those product niches that have a lot of selection variations, a lot of child variations, tend to have a very low conversion rate. And so that's one of the things that we want to try to refocus their attention onto. Okay, here's what's in it for you. There's other tactics that I go into as far as how you actually differentiate those benefits and those features, even when you sell the exact same product from the same factory as everybody else. There's definitely ways that you can work around that. I've got some tricks on that. We can probably discuss on that later.
Yeah, cool. I mean, actually, it is the right time. Give us, the last like 1 or 2 tips, that these like advanced tactics before we close. That would be great. Like some advanced tips would be.
Yeah. So one of the things I would recommend, I've got a few of these, but I'll say probably the most critical one that's easy for this is, if you sell the exact same product as everybody else, but your product is more expensive, is go back to your manufacturer, ask 2 questions. The first one is, what's the most expensive step in the manufacturing process? Not packaging, not shipping, just the manufacturing process. And what's the most time-consuming step in the manufacturing process? A lot of times you'll learn something about your own product that you didn't know before simply by asking what's most expensive step and what's most time-consuming step, and then come up with then identify the reason. Why was it more expensive? Why did it take longer? And point that out. Not that it's more expensive or took longer, but what was the result of that? What's the benefit of it being more expensive? What's the benefit of it taking longer? There's got to be one, and it's very unlikely that your competitors have pointed that out to the shopper. So that's kind of an easy one to get implemented. That 99% of sellers don't ever do.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So basically, you then point out something that they also have. In their product is the same as yours, but they never point that out. So your looks
pointing out things that you forget. Yeah, because you're too close to the product. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it sounds great. And also, it's kind of a good starting point to tell a story, right? So, in our manufacturing process, we do this and that, and that's why it's so expensive, and we're so cool because we do this differently. That's very interesting, actually. Yeah. So let's before we wrap up, tell people where they can find you and how can you help them in case they would like to stand out from the competition.
Well, I mean, kind of like what you had introduced me with, it's like I've produced a lot in the years that I've been in this space. And so certainly for those who, who are continuing to grow their brand, who have been on the platform, been on Amazon, for instance, for at least a year, and have got a pretty good pace, but are ready to scale up, certainly have a conversation with my advertising and marketing agency, Canopy Management. That's canopymanagement.com. It's a free conversation, so it's definitely worth learning from our perspective where your strengths and your weaknesses are, and where things that you should change in order to grow to the next level. Now, whether or not you choose to go with us as an agency to help you do that, that is certainly your own business decision, but at least get the answers so that you've got some kind of perspective compared to your competition. If you want to have certainly the conversation with me directly regarding this process as far as standing out, I actually do coaching and done with you type of coaching, and you can find me over at brianrjohnson.com, and you can book a session with me as well. So either canopymanagement.com to hand it off, or brianrjohnson.com if you want to basically have that done with you kind of discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. So I think we managed to have a pretty value-packed episode here. Good. And so guys, remember that the key to success is to emulate the best. So learn from what Brian just shared and go implement what you learned in your business today. These are like very actionable tips that you can really start implementing it today. Just make the changes in your listing that in order to make it stand out. Okay, and remember that you will find the slides with a lot of examples of images and titles. How can you improve your listing to make it different in the slides that you will find in the show notes at thesellerprocess.com, or in the YouTube description. You will find also the link. Thank you very much, Brian, for being here. I hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hey entrepreneurs, I hope you enjoyed the episode and learned something from the interview. If you're serious about creating systems for your business, automating processes and building up your team so that you can transfer the tedious daily tasks in order to focus on more high-level strategic tasks and work on your business and not in your business, I've created a guide for Amazon sellers named Capturing Systems and Creating SOPs that you can find at thesellerprocess.com/systems ebook, where you will learn how to leverage systems and SOPs in your Amazon business so that you can accomplish more by working less, optimize your time, automate and delegate tasks, and reap the benefits of being a true business owner and not simply an operator in your own business. Go download the ebook at thesellerprocess.com/systems ebook and start implementing all the tips and insights that I share with you, and leave us a review or a comment to let us know how the content we are sharing here is making an impact in your business. And have a productive week.